And hello again, everybody. No, I'm not Rochelle Herman. I'm Doug Miles, sitting in tonight, and great to be with you on Rochelle's It's All About Health, the television version. Rochelle sends her love to her audience there, but she asked me this afternoon if I could come down and fill in, and always happy to do so, to be with you folks here tonight on Channel 21. Got a good show for you. We've got a wonderful guest who's going to tell really a miraculous story of how he overcame really one of the scariest words anybody hears that goes to the doctor, cancer, and he's going to tell us about that. His name is Ken Nichols, and Ken, thanks for being with us tonight. How are you?
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good to meet you. We met briefly before the show tonight. I know you're probably a little disappointed Rochelle isn't sitting in this chair, but we'll make it work.
Sure, absolutely.
She told me a little bit about your background, and just you and I talking before the show, really a remarkable recovery you made from cancer, testicular cancer, I understand, right?
Absolutely.
Talk before we get into how you recovered and the diet, and you wrote a couple of books about it. Just going into the doctor and hearing that word, that must have been emotionally a difficult thing for you.
It's scary. It's scary. I was 39 years old. I wasn't a drinker. I wasn't a smoker. And I thought I lived a pretty healthy lifestyle. And I went in for a routine physical, and 3 hours later I came out with the diagnosis that I had testicular cancer. And shortly after that I found out that the cancer was also in my lymph nodes, and it's a scary thing.
Now, you had no symptoms or pain or anything?
I had no symptoms. I had no pain. About 10 or 11 months before that, I had an issue with an infection in my finger, which we found out long after that was probably a symptom that something was going wrong in my system. But I didn't feel bad. I wasn't having illnesses out of the ordinary other than normal colds. And I was somewhat active. I didn't live a very sedentary life, and I wasn't the person that my friends or relatives said would be the person that they would have thought would have gotten cancer as severe as I did.
Had there been any history in your family of the disease?
There had been a history in my family, but it was self-inflicted. I had family members that had cancer and had died of cancer, but had died of cancer that was mostly due to smoking and drinking.
Mm-hmm. When you went in for your routine test, did they specifically test for cancer, or was it a blood test that they said, well, maybe this is showing something, let's do a further test?
It was just a typical physical exam, a yearly exam. I went to my urologist, and during that part of the exam, towards the end, he noticed something that didn't feel right. And after a little bit more checking and a little bit of testing, after about 2.5 hours, they realized that it was indeed testicular cancer. And their biggest fear at that point was that it had spread to my lymph nodes. And after a surgery a couple of days later, they did find that indeed that was the case.
What did the doctor tell you that day? They did tests they did further tests during that exam. So you're sitting there, what, another hour, an hour and a half, 2 hours?
Exactly.
Worrying, I'm sure.
It was tough. At the time, my wife was living down in Naples, and we had moved down from Florida, but I owned a couple of businesses, or from Wisconsin, and I owned a couple of businesses up in Wisconsin, and I had been commuting about every week or so back and forth. And my wife was in Florida at the time, and I called her from a cell phone in the parking garage of the hospital and told her what was happening, and the doctor said that they wanted to do immediate surgery the next morning. And my wife said she really didn't agree with that and wanted me to wait until she got up there, and we'd talk to the doctor and we'd make a decision together as far as what we were going to do. And during that time of a couple of days before she arrived up in Wisconsin for the surgery, someone had given us some information about some non-traditional holistic type methods that maybe we should look into, and we watched some videos and read some books, and it seemed that was probably a pretty good idea. And several days later we had the surgery, and after the surgery they did find that it was significantly in the lymph nodes, and at that point they offered three different 17-round treatments of chemotherapy, and radiation as well. And they thought they had a pretty good chance of getting it under control. But with the books that I had read in that 4 or 5 day period and the videos that I had saw, I really started to realize that it probably wasn't the solution, that the radiation and the chemo and the drugs probably wouldn't rid me of the cancer forever. And that's what I wanted. I mean, I was only 39 years old, and I didn't like staring death in the face or the prospect of it coming back. And that's what it appeared to be, is that eventually it would come back if I couldn't get to the root of it. And that's really what started our journey looking into holistic and integrative alternatives.
We're going to talk about that when we talk about the books that Ken has written and a DVD coming out. But here you are going into for a regular physical. You're sitting in the doctor's office. That morning you figure, I'll be out in a couple hours and you'll be fine. Doctor comes back. Did he have that kind of look on his face? You say, this is going to be a little bit more serious than I thought, right?
Everybody in the office did. Yeah. And I don't know if I wasn't as scared or if it didn't quite click maybe, but the assistants and the nurses and the rest of the staff in this clinic all had this look on their faces as they saw me walk by or came into the room, like my dog had just died. And I guess I probably didn't realize the seriousness of what I had at that point.
What did the doctor say to you first?
He said, you've got a problem here, and I'm pretty sure it's cancer.
Really? Just right out?
Just right out like that. Look me right in the eyes, and.
Probably looking back on it, the best way to do it, rather than.
Yeah, I think
beating
so.
around the bush.
I think so. At least for me, it was, because I'm a problem solver, and I want to know the truth. I want to know up front exactly what's going on, so I can figure out what my game plan is from there. And that's exactly what he told me, and like I said, I think at that point they were probably a little more upset than I was, probably more so that they knew the seriousness of it and I really didn't.
What went through your mind? Obviously you said facing death, but any other thoughts that maybe surprised you at that particular moment? Do you feel a sense of calmness in any way, or is it nervousness? How did you feel?
Certainly a sense of calmness. My wife and I, our faith is very strong, and we knew that there had to be a reason. But I knew at that point that probably the key for us was going to be being analytical, which I am. We needed to figure out why I got it in the first place. How does a 39-year-old healthy guy get all this cancer? Why? And I knew that for me to be able to beat it, I needed to be able to answer that question in my life. And after a couple of days of soul searching and looking back at my life and my lifestyle over the last probably 15 years, I realized exactly how I got it.
Oh, you have an idea of where you might?
I'm quite sure as to why I got it.
Do you talk about that in the book, or do you want to say?
I do. When the books come out, it will explain a lot of that in detail. But I had a very high-stress career, very, very high stress. I had a company, a multi-million-dollar company that I started. It was my baby. I ran it every day, all the problems, all the issue, many employees, many different aspects of it. And I brought it home with me every single night. My wife and I figured at one point that I probably went about 5 years without sleeping more than 2 or 3 hours a night. And I know the stress had a lot to do with it. The other issue is I probably worked 14 or 15 or 16 hours every single day. And I was on the road a lot. And what I would do is instead of eating healthy, I would go through drive-thrus and I would eat off the dollar menu. Once, twice, 3 times a day. I would eat burgers, fries, fried chicken, tacos, soda, several sodas every day.
Not exactly a healthy diet.
Not exactly a healthy diet, although I was a little overweight, but I wasn't obese. But my stomach was full, but my body was starving to death. I didn't have any of the
total right there. We're going to come back and talk more about that, the stress angle of cancer, which a lot of people think can be a contributing factor. In your case, it may have been. Our guest is Ken Nichols, cancer survivor, remarkable story. More of his story when we come back right here on It's All About Health. We'll be right back.